I've just got 5 brief things I'd like to say as I look back on the last year and look forward to the future. First of all, I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to the Trust Board, especially to Alan as chair and Mike as vice chair, for all your support, help and guidance over the course of the last year. Thank you for all your service. You're all busy guys, and we really appreciate the time that you give. I want to say thank you to the FIEC staff. You've heard from them on that video. It's my privilege to lead a wonderful team of people who have a real heart for the work of the gospel in the nation, who pour themselves out, who work many hours more than could reasonably be expected, and who love the cause of the gospel and love the cause of churches. I'm so thankful to God for them. Thank you for all the work that you guys have done through the course of this year. Thank you for your unity. And we're really grateful and thankful for you. Most of all, thank you to you, the leaders and churches that are FIEC. As I said on the first day, you are FIEC. Thank you for your support. Thank you for involvement. Thank you for coming here and supporting this conference and our move. Thank you for your generosity financially. You make our work possible. The vast majority of the contributions that you give to FIEC simply support the staff costs. What you're supporting is all the work that you've just heard about in the course of that video. Thank you also to those who've donated to FIEC to enable some of our projects to move forward. So we've received generous support for a number of our staff and activities. So Phil Walter, our revitalisation coordinator, is funded by an American grant-making body in Brook Hills Church in Birmingham, Alabama. We're very grateful that an individual has supported David Shaw for his work as our theological advisor. I'm incredibly grateful for a gift that was received this year to enable Laura Dampney to come and be my executive assistant. We're so grateful for that extra funding that we've received that's been generously given. Secondly, I hope you're encouraged. I hope you're encouraged by all that God is doing. I'm encouraged about the work and ministry of FIEC. I'm encouraged FIEC is growing. You've heard some of the steps that we've been able to take forwards. Most of all, I'm encouraged by what you, the churches, are doing. What thrills me is travelling around the country and hearing from pastors and church leaders about how they're trying to reach their communities with the gospel, how they're sort of pouring their efforts and energies into reaching lost people, and how they're seeing people come to know Christ and be converted. I'm tremendously encouraged by the amazing creativity of so many FIEC churches in the way they're seeking to reach their communities, but yet their utter faithfulness to the gospel that they're proclaiming. And that's what we need. I think our data survey has been hugely significant. It's given us real hard data as to what's happening on the ground. And it is thrilling to hear of churches growing and to hear of people being converted. So over the last 2 years, about 6,000 more people are coming to FIEC churches than they were 2 years ago. 3,000 of that is new churches that have joined us, but 3,000 of that is genuine growth in the churches that you're leading. Actually, it's a trend in many of our churches. What you're seeing is more people coming, but coming less often. So actually the numbers there week by week may not seem to have grown very much, but the number of people you're impacting is much higher. You need to think about those that are coming regularly and that you're engaging with. And 950 baptisms is just a rough indication of the conversions we're seeing across the fellowship. Now, at one level, I said in the video, we long for more. But I do think it's vitally important that we have a realistic perspective of what the Lord is doing and how the Lord is working in our day, age, and place. I try to say that in the little book, Knowing Our Times. It's easy to have aspirations that are very unrealistic. Do we really expect that in our particular church we'll be seeing something dramatically different from what's happening in every other church everywhere else that preaches the same gospel faithfully? In the UK, most churches are seeing a conversion rate of about 1% a year, including kids growing up in the church coming to Christ. I think we want to pray and hope that we'll be doing a bit better than that. Conversion rate is about 2% or so across FIEC at the moment. But what most of us are experiencing in our church life is entirely normal for British evangelical churches preaching the gospel today. And so please be encouraged by that. Pray for more, but be encouraged by how the Lord is at work. I'm encouraged by the way that our churches are increasingly relating to one another. That interdependence is being developed, their support and mutual concern for one another. And I want to say, although at the moment, I guess many of us feel tiny, we feel insignificant, we may be feeling beleaguered, But I think we need to recognise that as FIEC, 600 churches in the nation, we are probably the largest committedly Bible-centred group of evangelical churches. I think we need to get over feeling sorry for ourselves. We need to get over feeling disappointed. And we need instead to recognise that in Britain today, we bear great responsibility. If we look at the reality of our nation, who is there? Well, we're actually quite a big part of what God has placed in this nation at this time. And from those who have much, much is expected. Please let us not feel sorry for ourselves or disappointed. Let's grasp the nettle of the responsibility we bear as God's people in this nation at this time for the gospel. Thirdly, where are we going? Where are we going? Well, our great goal in FIEC is, as we say in our strapline, we want to be independent churches working together to reach the nation for Christ. We want to see thriving gospel-proclaiming churches in every community. And we're beginning to work through how that strategy will work out in practice, what we can do to enable that to happen. What we want to see over the coming years is church growth which leads to gospel growth. We want all of our churches to be growing, our existing churches. We must have in our churches ambition for growth. Why would you not want your church to grow? Because your church growing means more people saved, more people in the kingdom. How can you be satisfied the size you are when there's so much need? We must have an ambition to growth, and we want to help you, our churches, to grow. That's, in a sense, one of the key works that Ray is doing, but that's the work of all of our staff team. So please, have an ambition for growth for your local church. But that will not be enough. We need to see new churches planted, churches revitalised in the very many communities where at the moment there is little or no gospel witness. And we're beginning to develop a strategy of how we can promote and support church revitalisation and church planting in those key areas where at the moment there is little gospel witness. We sort of see there being a multi-stranded approach. We want to see churches being planted in key regional centres that will be able to be a blessing to their cities, to their areas, to their regions. But at the same time, we want to be seeing churches planted into the unreached areas. And we recognise that there's a variety of different kinds of communities that are in particular need in the UK at the moment. There are those communities which have no witness at all. There are those kind of deprived urban communities which have little or no witness. There are the ethnic communities in which we're hardly penetrating at all. There are the rural communities where a large section of our population lives, but gospel ministry is difficult at the moment. And so what we want to be doing is supporting and encouraging effective church planting and church revitalisations into all of those different kinds of communities. And one of the thrills for me with FIEC is that we have got gifted people who are leading churches in those different contexts from whom we can learn an immense amount. What I want to do is gather some of those who've got expertise in those different kinds of ministries so that as a constituency as a whole we can learn how to do that well, and then so that we can motivate and catalyse church planting and gospel growth into those areas. I'm delighted that this year, because of a closed church, we've been able to set up a church planting fund. We've got £100,000 to start that off. I would love us to have more and more resources to be able to invest in planting into those kind of different needy kind of areas. So that's where we're headed. It's not a fully worked plan yet. We think we know what we need to do. Please pray for us as we try to think through what is the best possible way of doing it. I feel we're entering into a second generation of the development and growth of FIEC. We've reached a point from which we have become a stable, settled constituency. I rejoice in the diversity of FIEC, its diversity culturally and in style and in location and in context. What we need to do is we need to see how that can then be used to see the advance of the gospel across all of those fronts. And they're not competing. It's always got to be both and if we want to reach the nation. And we're learning more and more the fact that our interconnectedness makes all of those things possible. Fourthly, a couple of things to urge you. Can I please urge you to go back to your churches and share the FIEC vision with them? Can I urge you to engage your leaders and your congregation so they understand what we're all about? We can't do that from the centre. Only you can do that for us. We've tried to give you the tools. Please Please use the get to know videos. Please use that annual review video. Couldn't you use that in a church meeting and then pray for FIEC and its work? Wouldn't that help people to grasp something of what FIEC is about? Please do that. Go back to your churches and encourage them and help them to understand. And secondly, I just want to speak to the younger guys who are here, those who are younger in ministry. Can I urge you to get involved and have ownership of FIEC? You're the future. Actually, in 10 years' time, you'll be the guys who are leading FIEC. If you don't want to be in a position in 10 years' time of saying FIEC isn't what I wanted it to be, well, now is the time to start thinking about how you can give and how you can get involved. We want to nurture you. We want to help you to fulfill the vision that you have for the work of the gospel in our nation. But please get involved. Some of you might think about standing for the trust board in future. Some of you might give your times to our teams. I know that you feel busy, and I know that many of you feel you're just very young, but there comes a point at which you have to step up to the plate and say, actually, I've reached that stage at which I've now got to give. And I think there are loads of young guys of incredible potential in FIEC. Can I urge you to help us make FIEC what it ought to be? And we need you. Finally, can I say, please pray. I think that's a vital and urgent need for us to be praying not just for FIEC, but for the cause of the gospel in the nation, praying for our churches, praying for one another. In our church back home in Market Harbour, we preached through the book of Romans, and I was really struck by Romans 9 to 11, which I think are crucial chapters. Because in Romans 9 to 11, you just see the gospel heartbeat of Paul in a very open way. I was so struck by the way that you see Paul's passion for the lost, his grief over those who have not come to know Christ, which then leads to his prayer for them to be saved, which then leads to his gospel preaching and proclamation. I think the danger for us is often we've got the preaching bit, but maybe the passion and the prayer we haven't kind of put first. It seems to me the real proper order ought to be the passion which leads to the prayer, which then leads to the preaching. And so, can I say, let's recapture that passion for the lost, and let's be a people who are praying that God would save. It's actually quite striking. Paul, it says, has a particular passion for his own people. He prays for them, and then that leads him to preach the gospel to everyone. That's what we need if we're to reach our nation for Christ. Thank you so much for all of your support. Please be assured of our prayers for you. If there are ways in which we could serve you better, things that you'd love to see us doing, please do come and talk to me or to one of the team. We want to be able to serve the gospel and serve our nation in the best possible way we can. Thank you.